Right, we are ready to get started. Today is Tuesday, March 11th, 2025, and this is the City Council's work session. I am calling it to order and providing notice to members of the City Council and to the general public that at this work session, the City Council may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public for discussion and consultation with the city's attorneys for legal advice on any item listed on the following agenda. Can we have roll call?
Mayor Daggett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Sweet,
Here.
Councilmember Aslan, Councilmember Garcia,
Present.
Councilmember House,
Here.
Councilmember Matthews,
Here.
Councilmember Spence.
Here.
Council members Matthews and House are at the National League of Cities Conference in Washington, D.C. So thanks for moving away from whatever what do you call them, session you were in to join us here this evening. All right, Councilmember Garcia, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
It would be my honor, Madam Mayor. For those that can join, or those that can stand, please join me.
The mission of the City of Flagstaff is to protect and enhance the quality of life for all.
The Flagstaff City Council humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by Native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. We celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home.
Thank you. Next up is open call to the public. This is where the public can address council about any item that is not on tonight's agenda. And because any item can come up and it is not on the agenda, we are not allowed to answer questions, ask questions, and so forth. You have 3 minutes to speak. There is a timer right here. But I don't think that this next speaker needs to know all of that because I think that she knows all of that. Dr. Coral Evans.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, City leadership, and City staff. My name is Coral Evans. I'm a resident of Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm here to ask the City Council to move forward with the development of the Schultz parcel, AKA the Sunflower Patch, for affordable housing. I had the honor of serving on the Flagstaff City Council for just over 12 years. I changed my vote only once during that time, and that is the only vote I have ever regretted. On July 7, 2017, I changed my vote to break the council tie and remove the Sunflower Patch from a bundle of properties the council was moving forward in an RFP for affordable housing. At that time, there was a group of citizens who were threatening to pull a petition to place that property on a ballot for the community to vote on. That group was called Save Schultz Meadows, and they wanted the property to be open space. However, 3 years later, in the summer of 2020, the group sent a statement to the local newspaper and made a post on social media that they would not be submitting signatures to the City of Flagstaff due to COVID-19 and were waiting until it was safe to do so. In July of this year, that will have been a total of 8 years. To my knowledge, they have never submitted any signatures, nor does it seem that they plan to do so. I have a 6-page brief here that was prepared by the Flagstaff. I forget her title, but it was Sarah. I don't see Sarah, but she prepared this when I was mayor that speaks to the history of this property. The Sunflower Patch is owned by the City of Flagstaff. It is designated for affordable housing, and it has been shovel-ready since 2007. Please move forward with building affordable housing on the Sunflower Patch, AKA the Schultz Pass property. It's been ready to provide housing to Flagstaff families for 18 years, which is basically a generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Lauren Hildebrand.
Can you hear me okay? Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council for giving me a quick moment. My name's Lauren Hildebrand, and I'm the Community Liaison at the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality for Coconino, Mojave, and Yavapai counties. I think we went on a site tour. I think I met a few of you over the last couple years. But today, I had some business with the Rio de Flag plant. They were accepted into our voluntary environmental stewardship program at our bronze level, so that means they have at least 3 years of compliance. So we were up there this afternoon and presented them with the certificate. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Jolene Montoya for the last few years as well, and she's doing a great job running it up there. So I just wanted to speak with you guys really quick and just shine a little spotlight on all the hard work that they're doing to I guess, have some environmental excellence and be good environmental stewards in Flagstaff. So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we're moving down to review of draft agenda for the March 18th, 2025 City Council meeting. Council, do you have any questions or comments about the agenda? All right, then we will move on to number 6, City Manager Report, an update from PROS and Economic Vitality.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Good afternoon. I did not really call anything out for discussion in my report this time. It's just informational and there for your reading enjoyment. We do have a couple of presenters today from the divisions. I mentioned previously we were going to start a rotation during these work sessions on a quarterly basis to have various reporting divisions come forth, give you updates, you and the community. And so it's good information, it's timely, and it gives our divisions a nice opportunity to have an audience with our elected body. So today we have Rebecca, who will be giving you an update for PROS, and then Heidi Hansen, same comment with Economic Vitality and their teams. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Rebecca Sayers, Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Events Division Director. I'm going to run, literally, you see, no pun intended, we run a lot in PROS, but we're going to run through the last few months of our monthly newsletter, mainly because there's some really great stuff in these last few months, and I wanted to just highlight a few of them. First of all, December, and these are always available on our website for you to go review yourself the current months. This last year in review, we took the opportunity to highlight our new mission and values and vision, which are stated here. Our parks team was able to get involved in the Holiday Light Parade, which they had a ton of fun. It was a great team building event, but they also got some really great projects done, which you can see here. Mainly, these are new play structures that we've been able to install, new signage, new sod, just some great stuff. And if I'm making you sick with the scrolling, I apologize. I'm trying to get through really quickly and beat Heidi Hansen's time. We also had, lo and behold, some snow last year. It was last spring. Looks a little similar to what we had last week, finally, but we had some good snow operations. We also had some great new recreation programs that we tried out just to try to get people out to our facilities. This was a, oh gosh, now I forget what they called it, but it was a pumpkin plunge at the Aquaplex, which was so much fun. I didn't know that pumpkins float, but they do. And people got to dive in and pick their pumpkin and then decorate it and take it home. That was a great partnership with a local business. We also continue to have fun with cakewalks. The budget team that I'm now a part of started talking about cakewalks as fundraisers for the city of Flagstaff, so stay tuned for that. Recreation might be able to help out. We've got some great stuff going on. Huge maintenance project at J Lively last year. Lots of great events. So that was our year in review. Whoops, I shouldn't have done that. And in January, we celebrated our parks team that was awarded with the best hiking and biking trail by Daily Sun viewers, reviewers, and we got the Best of Flagstaff award, and part of our team was able to go and accept that award at their banquet, which was great fun for them. We've been doing a lot of projects this year with the mild weather. We've been able to get a lot of things done and off our plate that we've been just haven't had time for. So these are some improvements at Fox Glen Park. I'll say that a lot of this was in direct response to some concerns that were brought to us by citizens to our Parks and Recreation Commission. So kudos to the team for listening and getting some improvements made to help stabilize those courts at Fox Glen. We are now able to offer our own lifeguard training. I'm looking at you, Vice Mayor, if you're still interested. We might be able to accommodate that now, but this is great. This is a part of a grow your own type program that we're trying to offer. And in recreation, we had a great classical music concert for free to our community members. These are professionals that come in and perform. It's the Piatigorsky Foundation, and they rotate through musicians once a year. They come through Flagstaff, and that's been a great, it just continues to improve. I think I will talk about this in our next, the dinner and a movie. We had great results of that we had over at Hal Jensen. I'll get to that. And open space is continuing to hit some milestones with the Greater Observatory Mesa Trail Plan. More to come on that as well. It is definitely spring, so we've got athletics going. We've got spring break camps happening right now at the Aquaplex. It's a lot noisier than it was before I left for budget team meetings, I can tell you that, but it's fun to hear the excitement in the building. Youth basketball, that we're going to February now, so this is our latest report that is available on our website right now. These pictures just made me smile so much. These kids just having a great time and learning a lot of life lessons in playing basketball. Some of these pictures are second graders, which just is so much fun. More good news, we are hiring and we are keeping people, at least. I hope I didn't just jinx us, but we have some great new team members, especially on our parks team, and they brought some great new energy. They had a lot of fun last week, I hear, with Director Amy Hagan, who was out shoveling with them and always makes everything fun, as you all know, and they had a good time getting to know her a little bit better. We also started kind of our spring prep for our ball fields. We are already there. We're going to open up those fields and turn them over to our Little Leagues and other user groups on April 1st. I know, right? We're there. Recreation continues to improve. We've got great numbers for public skate. This one is exciting. We were able to finally reopen our racquetball courts at Hal Jensen. Who knew that we have racquetball courts at Hal Jensen? Anybody? Yes, so it's there, and they're reopened. It's amazing. We've got some great new furniture that was donated for the kids club at the Aquaplex, so the kids are having fun with that. And then I wanted to highlight this Black History Month at Hal Jensen Recreation Center. We hosted dinner and a movie. You saw that flyer in the January newsletter. We had 70 attendees. It was a great thing. This was just something new that they tried this year, and with great success. Open Space is doing some maintenance. They're partnering with our parks team to keep cars out of Picture Canyon, which is amazing. And just doing some great work. And then here are some great action shots of our adult basketball league that is going on, I believe, wrapping up soon. And we'll be moving into volleyball, and then our softball season will begin before you know it outside. We're also doing a call for musicians right now for our concerts in the park, which are much beloved. So I hope I spoke fast enough. I hope wasn't too fast and I didn't make anybody sick with the scrolling. But that's kind of some highlights of the last few months, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Council, any questions or comments? Other than fantastic work, as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Don't tie me, Greg.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. Heidi Hansen, Economic Vitality Director. I'm going to go through some things that happened recently in January and then just the things overall that you might want to know about. But first, I wanted to share that as a reminder, the Economic Vitality Division is comprised of the airport, tourism and visitor services, the library district, which means it's city and county, as well as economic development, parks and I just stole Rebecca's beautification, arts and sciences, and parking. I hope I didn't leave anybody out, but it's a big group. At the airport, we are excited to say that we had the flight to LAX resume. It's only one day, which is totally annoying for some of us because it's only on a Saturday. We're always hoping to get one more day so we can have a good return trip, but it is helping us get that international traveler here. We still have flights to Phoenix and Dallas-Fort Worth. I hope that you're using those. And then also, Brian Gall always wants me to remind everybody, we had the 4th busiest year for enplanements with a single carrier this year. So we're excited that we've kind of rebound since United had left the market. Staff has been diligently looking for second service. So they've met with 7 carriers, and I wrote them out here for you to see: Alaska, Allegiant, Breeze, Delta, SkyWest, Southwest, and United. Some of these would be very large to have fly out of Flagstaff, and there'd be a lot of seats to fill where some are just right for the kind of leisure travel or business travel we want. We're also working on the small community air service development grant. That is a grant that would give $800,000 to a carrier that would want to start service here. So we just had a great meeting on that. We have some things in the books that we're going to be working on. I'll come back to you with that success. And then another thing I wanted to share was just the economic impact of the airport. If you haven't heard this, we generate 971 jobs, and we bring in about $128 million to this community. So I think that's something really fun to share with you. We were also featured in the Airliner World magazine. It comes out of the UK. And Brian Gall was asked, thank you, Claire Harper, for procuring this story. Brian Gall was asked to be featured and to feature the airport. And we're talking several pages about the airport. It's very exciting. It goes global. We also had an 11% increase in enplanements in January. Again, enplanements is someone taking a seat on a plane, and that's how you get other air services, when you can show you can fill planes. And then you heard last week from Brian about our grab-and-go micro-visitor center that we're going to have up in April. So what can you do? Always fly Flagstaff first. So if you have the opportunity to ever fly, we hope that you will start your journey in Flagstaff and ask others to do so as well. One thing I wanted to share with you that's not on the screen is Brian just sent you an email about an article that was done in the Daily Sun about our paid parking system. Just so you know, we are just started those discussions with the Airport Commission about looking at paid parking rates and adding rates and maybe changing rates. We are nowhere close to coming before you on that. The Daily Sun took that story from an Airport Commission meeting. So I just would like you to know that nothing is changing. As soon as we finish having those meetings with the Airport Commission, we'll be bringing that forward to you, and we will also be bringing a recommendation. For economic development, they have lots of things going on. They're always looking at business attraction, retention, expansion. Our team is doing a great job with that. But I thought I would share some things that people might not know. I know you've heard about Innovate Waste. It's changed to Innovate Green. It's a program that we do with sustainability. And basically, a business, if they have a good pitch idea, something maybe like, how can I do carbon dioxide removal, something to that effect, they can actually send their idea in on April 7th to be part of our pitch. And then they win prizes, monetary prizes, which is really cool to get that idea moving ahead. So go to chooseflagstaff.com to learn more, or I can have Dave McIntyre speak to them as well. We also have the adaptive reuse program incentive, where it provides $5,000 to cover development fees. So anyone that's actually talking to our community development team right now, and they're working with them, we have this incentive to help them with their fees, because a lot of them will say sometimes the fees can get kind of pricey when they've gone back and forth a couple of times. Dave's put this program together quite a while ago from going to a conference and digging deep with some other areas, and this has been proven to be very successful. Again, can be found on chooseflagstaff.com, or just send them to us and we're happy to help them. The Moonshot, who handles, they are our agency that handles the incubator and accelerator programs on Innovate Mesa, just put out their annual report, and Dave sent you an email. You get lots of them, but if you've seen it already, then great. If not, we hope you'll look at it and see all the things that they've talked about with their programming this year, their events this year, their occupancy this year, and what's yet to come. So again, I think it would be a good read. For parking, we are working on putting together a curbside management plan. We're going to be doing a request for proposals. We want a consultant to help us assist in analyzing our curbside management, so loading zones, parking management, occupancy, and also maybe potential fee changes for our parking program. So that's going to be coming out soon, and we'll let you know when that hits the streets. Dave also wanted to share, he's very, very excited about this, and so am I, that they are finally fully staffed. We haven't been fully staffed in Park Flag since 2019, and we know that they're very, very important because they're our ambassadors. We always want to give a warning before a ticket, and we also want to help with directions and things like that, so our visitors feel like they should visit here and they want to keep coming back. The Flowbird app that you can put on your phone if you want to pay for your parking that way, some people are having trouble with it. So I wanted to share with you, if you've heard anyone that's talked about having trouble, please just let us know. We're happy to put a ticket in for them. But one of the things we do also want them to try first is to take the app off their phone and reload it and see if that will do the trick. And the reason I'm telling you is I just heard about this at a tourism commission meeting where some of the commissioners had a hard time paying that way. So if you hear about that, again, that's one of the little tools we'd like them to try, and if not, just reach out to Gail Brockman and she can take care of them. Beautification, Arts, and Science, Jana and her team, I really don't know how they get it all done. There's only 3 of them, and they are just knocking it out of the park. They have so many active projects, and here are 4 on the screen. I think you heard about our multicultural art exhibit where we have it at the Liz Archuleta Park. We just were at Arizona Forward's event this past weekend. Thank you, Councilmember Sweet Vice Mayor Sweet for attending. We were a finalist for an award. We got beat out by Phoenix, which I'm a little bitter about, but I'm getting over it, and just kidding. They did great, and those art sculptures are going to be changing, and they're going to be new ones. If you thought these were the ones that we have out there impressive, these are going to knock your socks off. We also have a call to artists for the Spruce Wash Wedge. We are seeking community input on the Cleo Murdoch artwork. And then, of course, there's an artist contract in progress for the Dunbar School History plaque. If you've been over to the Visitor Center lately, you might have seen a really interesting bench. This is kind of a result of a Beautification and Action grant, and I know Councilmember Garcia, you are very aware of those grants because you were on BPAC for so long. And this person made this bench out of railroad ties. I just wanted to share that with you because it's so interesting on how talented the people are in this community. So I hope we'll see more of those around town. And then, of course, the monument signs that you see, at any entrance of Flagstaff continue to be refurbished. So what can you do? If a business needs assistance or an area needs some TLC, please let us know. And then, of course, I just want to remind everyone to always pay the kiosk. The library, which is city and county, library is always busy. The programs are amazing. Linda and her team are knocking it out of the park again. They have the Crafty Corner, they have several book readings, they just brought weekday story times back, and then they, of course, have their fun Lego Club. I don't know if you've ever been over there when they do Lego Club, but that is some fun stuff. They are very creative, and the kids are just having a ball. And last week, you saw a press release, and you probably heard a little bit about that the county bookmobile is now back in action per the county's request. We are also even doing fun little things on the entrance of the main library where they can actually do stuff on the fencing. And we had some people do some pine cone garland and things like that. The point of the matter is they're interacting at their library and they're finding really fun ways to do things besides be on their cell phone. And as a parent, I can tell you, getting them off their phone is very exciting. If you want to hear more about the library, you can always go to flagstaffpubliclibrary.org. So true or false? More people came into the Coconino County Library in FY24 than attended a Phoenix Suns home game season. Mayor. Very true. And it's not because the Suns are doing so horribly right now. It's just because we're that amazing at the library. Over 790,000 people entered our libraries. This is something I found out just the other day from Linda, and I did not know we did this. We have a library of things. So we don't just do books and magazines and ebooks and things like that. If you need a toolkit, let's say you live in an apartment and you don't have a toolkit, you can check out a toolkit. Let's say you are interested in watching the birds that are, I don't know, in your backyard. You can actually check out a bird watching kit. So I'm just telling you, if you think the library doesn't have what you need, I will be shocked. They have crock pots. I mean, it's crazy. So anyway, if someone's looking for something, I hope they'll go to the website and see if we have it first. Their library card is that valuable. Again, what can you do? Share the services that we offer, and if someone has gently used books that they like to drop off, we definitely use those, and we also help to put them into the little libraries that you see around the community. And last but not least, tourism. If they're always busy. We just did a huge campaign on spring training. We want the people that come into spring training to not do their trip to make it short. We want them to go to the natural wonder, the Grand Canyon. And since there is no nightlife in the Grand Canyon, we want them to stay with us. And we want them to extend their stay. So these are some really fun ads that we shared to kind of coordinate spring training with the Grand Canyon. I think you would say they are awesome as well. We continue to support the restaurant and bars in our community with a separate campaign, as well as blogs and some journalists that have come into town. Brian Randazzo has done a great job with that. And we're also working on other campaigns right now. And again, you heard a couple weeks ago about the centennial. So we're doing lots of things in a lot of different areas. January was probably one of the worst months I've seen in a long time, and you're shaking your head, Vice Mayor. Lack of snow hurts us, plus it's what we call a shoulder season month, and so the Daily Sun even posted about it being one of the driest on record. So our sad little snowometer that you see at the top right corner hasn't moved very much until now. It just moved because of that great snowfall we had, and it's going to move again this week. So it's very, very important that we have snow and we have give people an opportunity to come up and enjoy the season. We had our ecotourism campaign last month. We had the U.S. Department of Commerce come in. We were picked as the poster child for sustainable tourism, and that's because we have an ecotourism plan plus sustainability, and all of you have a climate action plan. Councilmember Aslan joined us, which we greatly appreciate, but unfortunately we heard with the federal funding issue that they are no longer able to do the program. So we're going to have to see if that funding comes back at some time. We really did make a lot of headway. They met with over 50 stakeholders to really dive into our community. But we're hoping that if something comes back in the future, again, we'll just start up where we had stopped. We're working on the Green Book. I really wish Councilmember House was here, but she's online, right? Okay, so Green Book is revised, and I shared that with you before, but what's even more important is we're getting the plaques installed. So I promised her by the end of 2025, she is going to see plaques, and she's going to be able to tell people to take that tour, and they're really, really going to enjoy it. So just wanted to make sure that it is front and center, and Discover Flagstaff's going to make it happen. And then last but not least, I just want to give you a taste of what we see from our Discover Flagstaff team with media coverage that we get. We have the horse-drawn carriage rides that just started at the Visitor Center, and I want to thank our Visitor Center manager, Jessica Johnson, for that relationship. They have been a hit. People want to get on that little carriage ride and go around downtown. It's amazing. We've used them a couple of times, so we even got a story on it. We also had a story on the great outdoors, why it's important or fun to bike here, as well as why it's terrific to go skiing at the Snow Bowl. We also had a story that we were on the 100 best dishes in Arizona, and several of the restaurants in town had their dish in this. And then we were also in the Living Well magazine. They talk about the Astronomy Discovery Center like everything. And then, as you all know, Newsweek just said that Lowell Observatory is the best science museum. So that's super exciting. This is literally just a taste. I think if you look at my monthly report every month, you'll see there's like 10 articles that we've gotten. And I will tell you, most of the time, it's something from having a journalist come in and us hosting them, and then them wanting to write about us. It's really, really important because these things go global. All right, so what can you do? Please tell people to want to hug a visitor instead of be frustrated with a visitor. We definitely need them. They're a $583 million economic impact for us, so we always want people to enjoy the fact that we need visitation. And with that, I am done. Any questions for me?
Questions, comments, council? Vice Mayor.
I just had a comment actually for you and Rebecca. Heidi, thank you for the update. It is amazing what your team can accomplish, and I'm just very proud to see everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
And Rebecca and her team, we just got snow, and I'm speaking from my business downtown. You didn't skip a beat. Everyone was out there. It was cleared. The alley program really was beneficial. People were walking, and it just was great to see, so I just appreciate your help. Thank you both.
And Councilmember House wrote, hold on.
It's about time. Is that what she wrote? It's about time,
It was
Heidi.
something like that, except it was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for the Green Book update, Heidi.
Thank you for keeping that top of mind for us, Councilmember House. We appreciate it.
She also says that if we get smacked for hugging a visitor, we're blaming you.
All right, she can blame me. Maybe I'll just give her some stickers to hand out.
Any other questions or comments, council? Thanks so much, Heidi.
You got it. Thank you. I'm going to just close this out.
All right. So now we're moving on to Metro Plan Vulnerable Road User Safety Action Plan presentation. Are our friends from Metro Plan here, or maybe they're online?
We're online. My apologies.
Hello.
Hello. Well, thank you all. Good afternoon, Mayor Daggett and members of City Council. Really appreciate this opportunity to present to you today. My name's Mandia Gonzalez. I'm a transportation planner at Metro Plan. Before we jump into our Vulnerable Road User Safety Action Plan, for those of you not familiar with Metro Plan, we are a federally required metropolitan planning organization, often referred to as an MPO. And our intent is to bring together our regional partners, which include the City of Flagstaff, Coconino County, Arizona Department of Transportation, Mountain Line, and NAU to identify priorities for holistic transportation investments in our region. And as shown on the screen, one of Metro Plan's values is to get our region to zero transportation related deaths and serious injuries. So once again, thank you for the opportunity today. When we talk about vulnerable road users, we are referring to people who walk, bike, and roll outside of their vehicles. These people are disproportionately impacted by serious injuries and fatal crashes on our region's roadways. Skipped a slide there, excuse me. So today we are going to present our findings as outlined in our draft documents. And so the purpose of this project is to consolidate our existing safety-related work. In our region, we have a lot of safety recommendations coming from various transportation plans that include from the City of Flagstaff and ADOT and the county. So it gives us the opportunity to pull those all together so we can work to prioritize projects with vulnerable road users in mind. We are looking to provide recommendations to our partners on how to address these fatalities and serious injuries, and to establish Metro Plan's commitment to Vision Zero. And if you are unfamiliar with Vision Zero, that is a strategy to reduce or eliminate traffic fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways. So this planning effort really has multiple purposes. I'll just go through this real quick. We will be identifying countermeasures that help to improve transportation safety. A big component is identifying quick build, low cost improvements that can lead to immediate change in our community. Consolidate, review, and prioritize existing safety recommendations. And this information further supports grant and funding opportunities, along with helping our partners reach their safety goals and policies. All right, so let's start with some national and state context. The left graphic demonstrates the top 20 most deadliest states for people walking. This is an annual report provided by Smart Growth America, and Arizona is ranked number 5. The graph on the right represents the fatality rates as a nation, a state, and of course our region. And really what I want to pull your attention to is the fact, well, coming out of 2021, we're all seeing a substantial decline. So that is wonderful to see. But in 2023, our region is really on par with the state as a whole. So we have our fair share of work to do in improving transportation safety as both a region and a state. All right, moving into local findings. And I believe I skipped one of my messages. And just as a reminder to folks, Metro Plan is a regional planning organization. So our boundary covers 525 square miles. So quite big. It does include all of the City of Flagstaff and then, of course, Coconino County. So the information that you're going to see, think of it from a region-wide perspective. Okay, so moving into these local crash findings. We evaluated the crash data of bicyclists and pedestrians over the 7-year period from 2017 to 2023, and this data is provided by ADOT as part of their crash reporting system. It should be noted, crash data is a tool. There are certainly challenges with reporting of this data, and there are limitations with this. For example, today I found out that there was a deviation in the data as reported in these findings. So just want to acknowledge that some numbers will be adjusted here in the future, but trends are what's really telling the story of our region, because even one traffic fatality is too many. So over the 7-year period, our region experienced 489 bike and ped crashes. 27 resulted in a pedestrian fatality, 8 in a bicycle fatality. These crashes, 28% represent pedestrian crashes, which resulted in a serious injury and fatality, and 18% for bicyclists. So here's an overview of our historical trends over the 7-year crash period. The graph in the top left represents all bike and ped crashes, regardless of severity. And what I mean by severity is from no injury all the way up to a fatality. So while there is a steady incline in overall crashes, this is actually on par with the nation as a whole. The bottom left graph we're really taking out those fatalities only by year. And luckily, we are seeing a decline in those fatalities. So we have our increase in crashes, the decline in fatalities, once again, on par with national and state stats and trends. On the right, we wanted to separate bikes and peds to see if any one mode was disproportionately impacted. Once again, this is related to all crashes regardless of severity. And we are seeing local trends mirror those of the state and nation, with pedestrians being disproportionately impacted by crashes. Yeah. So as we attempt to reduce or eliminate serious and fatal crashes, we wanted to get a sense of who is being impacted. So ADOT's crash reporting system provides both gender and age. So on the left, we do see that men are primarily impacted by VRU serious and fatal injuries. Looking at age, we want to investigate any, associated trends with that as well. So as a nation, it is reported that the 55 plus community is seeing a substantial increase in serious injuries and fatalities. Here in Flagstaff, our trend is actually opposite, with 18 to 34-year-olds really experiencing that higher number and percentage of those serious and fatal crashes. And that's, the younger demographic may represent the fact that we have a state college. And this type of information really helps us at MetroPlan to understand and target audiences and their behaviors, so we can help make improvements across the board for everyone. All right, so where are these crashes happening in our region? I know it's kind of small. Our region as a whole is shown in that bottom right corner. So as you see, we are looking at the county as well, and there are unfortunately a few red dots on there. So since the majority of crashes do happen in our more urban setting, the city, we have this zoom in version for you today. Just a quick key on this, the circles represent bicyclists while the squares represent pedestrians. These are color coded based on the severity of crashes, with green being a minor crash and red representing a fatality. And what's interesting to see in this visual is the density of crashes along Milton and downtown. While there are several, many tend to result in a moderate to severe injury compared to the east side of town, where there are substantially more fatalities, especially related to pedestrians. And this area, land use and road design really favors wide roads and faster speeds. So looking at specific places where these crashes occur, we have some interesting results. As discussed earlier, pedestrians are disproportionately impacted by traffic crashes, especially while just trying to cross the road. 58% of crashes for pedestrians are related to just getting from one side to the other. So in addition to looking at the areas and the infrastructure, we needed to get to the why of these type of crashes. So there are contributing factors that are based on both behaviors and actions of all modes and all people involved in the crash. So listed on the left are the top 3 contributing factors that came up in our data analysis. Number 1, vehicles not yielding at intersections and crosswalks. Number 2, pedestrians and bicyclists crossing the road at unmarked crossings, essentially in the mid-block. And then number 3, bikes being struck in the bike lane by vehicles or due to riding the wrong way. So the information not only informs countermeasures, but it gives MetroPlan more support for continuing safety education and campaigns to ensure that we all make it home at the end of the day. So MetroPlan is in the process of using all these findings to identify strategies to support action areas and future project recommendations. So we've taken all of this data, did robust public outreach that led us to some qualitative data, and are moving into action areas which will inform MetroPlan's policies and priorities. So through the data and outreach, we have identified these 5 action areas: reduce potential conflicts between users, slow vehicle speeds, encourage safer practices among all modes, improve data collection and analysis, and support an institutional commitment to Vision Zero. And these action areas will help to prioritize projects and investments within a 2 to 5 year period. So immediate impacts to transportation safety can happen. Of course, this will require support and partnership with our member agencies, such as the city. So we will use these action areas to further review and refine current safety recommendations, as well as determine these potential low cost, easy to implement projects that immediately improve safety. So as part of the planning process and one of our action areas, MetroPlan has developed a new publicly available data set called a risk exposure assessment. And the purpose of this tool is to understand any safety risks based on infrastructure design, to understand influences on an exposure to a crash, determine if higher risks impact disadvantaged communities. This helps us also score the roadway. That helps to help prioritize and identify projects in those areas. And it's more of a proactive tool than a reactive tool. So before I showcase the new tool, it's important to define, what a risk factor is and what exposure is for the purposes of this new tool. A risk factor is a characteristic or behavior that increases the likelihood of a negative outcome. Our example here is the number of through lanes on a roadway. Exposure is the condition of being exposed to something. So in this case, it's our road users being exposed to a risk factor, and that risk factor is a road attribute. I know I'm running a little low on time, so I'll kind of go through this part quickly. So through that process, we generated a risk score model after the highest risk factors. Those are shown on the left side of your screen. And essentially what you're seeing in this still image is the roadways with the higher risk receive a higher score. And those are in dark red. And once again, this is just another tool to help us understand what's happening on the roadway and to identify countermeasures and to better prioritize safety improvements. This is publicly available if anyone would like to jump on our website and take a look at it more deeply. All right, so to conclude, thank you for the opportunity to present today. MetroPlan will be adopting a Vision Zero resolution next month to help inform our organizational policies, develop strategies, and then lead to those prioritized projects and programs. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Council, do you have any questions or comments? Councilmember Spence.
Thank you, Mayor. One suggestion I would have, which I think would be in the low-cost category, to reduce the 36% of crashes or incidents that occurred in marked crosswalks. It's my observation that the markings obviously deteriorate over time, and I would suggest that paying more attention to restriping, and if we have to do it every 6 months, that would be worth the investment. Many of our crosswalks, you have to really look hard to see where should I cross this particular intersection. Just a suggestion.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Mendia, for the good presentation. It's always nice to hear what MetroPlan is doing and helping us out. I remember a former council member who once sat in this seat, Adam Shimoni, and he would always say, until we could have our citizens here in Flagstaff feel safe from the age of 8 to 80, then we're always going to be relying on MetroPlan to come up with new solutions. This question just was off the top of my head, so if you don't have a direct answer, we can think about this question. But I was just kind of curious of how the new metric and this new system is going to help add to our current projects, such as the Lone Tree Overpass. Do you have any input on that?
Yeah, I can give a little bit. As you stated, this is new for us, a new online tool. So right now, as a region, We use what's called the high injury network, which is similar to what this new tool is, with the difference being that that's just looking at current conditions, right? And so it's really taking the number of crashes within certain segments or intersections. This gets a little bit more nuanced, so we can dig into, hey, is it riskier for somebody to cross a 6-lane road than a 2-lane road? Intuitively, we know this, but there's other kind of interesting things that are in there that we learn through this process, such as medians. Medians can impact safety, so it allows us to dig a little bit deeper into understanding what's on the ground, providing that risk to a person using the facility, so that way we can address it a little bit clearer. I think for, the Butler projects, those are already designed with vulnerable road users in mind. They are safety projects for everyone. So at this time, I wouldn't think that our tool would be helpful to those projects, but certainly moving forward, I can see it just providing more information.
Very clear and concise. Thank you for that. It brought some light to some of the things I was thinking about in my mind when it comes to this new project. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any additional questions or comments? I don't see any online, so thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right, we are moving on to item number 8, emergency management briefing, public safety power shutoffs.
Yeah, there you go. I gotta get the team down here, right? All right. Okay. I guess I'm the boss today. Thank you. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Stacy Breckland-Eggs, Emergency Management Director. And thanks for allowing emergency management briefing for our public safety power shutdown, PSPS as it's referred to, update. So we were here back in late February of 24. Emergency management and APS met together to discuss plans to implement public safety power shutoffs, and that have the potential to cause wildfires and high-risk transmission lines. During that time, we were able to come to council. They had identified a couple of transmission lines that, high-risk transmission lines that provide power to Lake Mary Treatment Plant and to Woody Mountain Well. So that was last year. We are here now for the 2025 upcoming fire season to discuss additional lines that have been identified by APS that supply our critical water infrastructure. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Daniel Kelly, our emergency manager, to introduce the team and kick off the presentation. Thank you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Daniel Kelly, Emergency Program Manager. So Stacy nailed it right off the bat. So you're going to hear today from City Emergency Management, Water Services, Fire, Sarah Langley, Communication and Civic Engagement, and then online you have Janet Dean. Another key partner who is a part of this but not here today is County Emergency Management. One other thing before we start, I just want to point out that APS has been a fantastic partner with the city on this. It's a give and take relationship. They are open to communication from our end. So when they give us lines that are of danger for them, we relay back to them the total impact on the city. And they are doing their due diligence on trying to figure out where they can cut some lines off so it won't have such a huge impact on the city. So with that said, I'll turn it over to APS.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, thank you for the time today. I'm Joe Weathersby. I'm the Northeast Division Manager for APS, based here at Flagstaff. Have some experts here with me, Brian Kelly, who's a supervisor in our fire mitigation program, as well as Ryan Weisner, who's our key account manager, which a lot of you already know him. I just wanted to take a few minutes to first introduce them and let you know and echo some of the sentiment already given today, which is public safety power shutoffs isn't convenient for anybody, not even APS, quite honestly. Our job is to keep the meter spinning. But due to the threat of wildfire and the increasing, we'll say, threat of wildfire that is just occurring across the Southwest and quite frankly in places it never has been across the nation, this is a tool that we needed to put together to be able to deploy if needed. But it is a tool of last resort. It isn't something APS goes to first. We have many other things that we do. We have lots of sophisticated equipment. We have 3 meteorologists on staff. We have a very large, robust fire mitigation team full of experts that we do a lot in the form of other things. One of those things being prevention. From our DSAP program where we're clearing spaces underneath poles. So if a spark was to emit from our device or a fire was to happen outside of our devices, it won't burn the equipment up or the fire won't move out from the equipment into other areas. We have a very, 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 I would say, world-class forestry operation at APS. I've been recognized for many, many things that we've done in that space. Our right-of-ways are clear. When you go through our right-of-ways, they're a right-of-way. You can walk through them. You can drive through some of them, quite honestly, most of them. That's not the case everywhere. That's something APS has been doing for many, many years and will continue to do while being good stewards for the environment. So really appreciate the time here today, and I'd like to turn it over to Brian Kelly to go through some slides and a few more details. Thank you.
Alrighty, good evening. I'm Brian Kelly. I'm the supervisor, wildfire mitigation. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you all. I am also a resident up here in Flagstaff. I'm based in the Flagstaff area, and I live on a PSPS feeder, so it touches home even for me. But do want to give you all an awareness of our fire mitigation program, kind of start broad and narrow into the topic at hand, PSPS, for today's discussion. Hope you all can see the slides. I don't know if you're looking at your laptops there. Okay, see some head nods. So really want to give you an overview of how we got here with PSPS and all the other good work, as Joe mentioned, that goes into effect prior to getting to the PSPS point. So we consider this our 5 pillars to fire mitigation here at APS. Similar to you in your mission of protecting and enhancing the community, we have a similar vision and mission of reducing fuels, protecting our communities that we live and serve in. So everything that we do related to fire mitigation has that as a priority. And it really starts with veg management. We look at our veg program as top tier and maintaining less than 2% of our outages related to vegetation. Industry-wide, that's extremely low. Other utilities have numbers in the multiple digits, 40 to 50% of their outages are veg-related, and ours is less than 5%. As Joe mentioned, our right-of-ways, they look like landing strips from the air. They are extremely clear. We do not have veg power line conflicts. And that really is the pinnacle of the program. If you don't have good clearance, you're not maintaining your system. Defensible space around poles, that's a piece of it. So maintaining fire-wise around our home, which is the pole, we clear, this year it'll be 65,000 poles a year across the state. Every pole in the Flagstaff area will be assessed for defensible space. So is there clearance around the equipment that our poles house? And then our hazard tree program, so even looking beyond our prescriptive right-of-ways, upwards of 100 feet beyond our lines, where those trees, ponderosa pines, are tall enough to strike, aspens if you're up on the mountain. We know that the forest is struggling right now due to the moisture, the drought, so we're targeting those trees for removal and actively working actually right now in Kachina and in the Flagstaff area. Do want to touch on grid hardening. So we're making our system more resilient to these extreme weather conditions. Ongoing distribution system upgrades, mesh pole wrapping, so a new product called Fire Mesh. It's really neat. We're putting it on our wood poles where we have to have wood poles because of climbability, access, where we can't get a bucket truck. We will wrap the poles with a fire mesh material that will protect them from an oncoming wildfire. Of course, steel poles, if we can get a truck to it, that's the preferred option. Asset inspection. Joe Weathersby's group is actively patrolling our lines right now. Before we go into fire season, we're going to patrol every foot of power line in our high-risk areas. Comes out to several thousand miles across the state, and we have to have all work orders created. Anything that's broke has to be fixed before May 1st. That's a target for us. So coming out of the heavy snow, let's make sure our system's good to go. We're looking at using drones, even with infrared scans, to find those hot spots on our equipment before it becomes an ignition point. One area I'm going to touch on in some further slides is our monitoring and awareness. We've made a significant investment in this space to be able to make data-driven decisions for our operational mitigations on our system. Joe mentioned a dedicated team of meteorologists. They're the real deal. They know what they're doing, and they forecast 24/7, 365, and they're watching out for us on that side of things. They all came from the NWS. I'm sorry if there's anybody on the line, but we stole them. Even some local folks here. Advanced fire modeling software. So anytime there's an alert through IRWIN, which is the interagency dispatch center kind of system they use, we're modeling that fire for its potential. We get a PDF report instantly of what that fire would look like under worst case conditions if it were not suppressed. Luckily, most of them are suppressed due to quick action from our first responders, but we have an idea of what the potential is. Cameras and weather stations. We have a lot of cameras and weather stations across the state. In fact, when we started this endeavor, we found that across our entire system of over 38,000 miles of power line, there was only one publicly available RAWS station, that's a remote automated weather station, that was within 1 mile of one of our system circuits. So that would not be a data-driven decision that I could stand by, is relying on one weather station at an airport near our lines. So we've made an investment there. Federal and state agency partnerships, can't say enough here. We rely on those folks to give us best management practices. We rely on them for advice and areas of concern and reporting things that we wouldn't know otherwise. I look at this last pillar, operational mitigations, as we've done all this work, all this investment, all this system upgrades, and now we're entering into fire season. We're approaching that April-May timeframe. We're getting hotter, drier, windier. What are we going to do operationally to mitigate the risk? It starts with our non-reclose strategy, and we've done this for years. In fact, we've done this since 2019, and it's adjusting the settings on our system. So line side devices, those are reclosers, and then breakers within our substations. We'll adjust the settings to where if there's a momentary outage, a flicker of the lights, the system will lock out and say, hey, no, we're not going to try and re-energize. We need to be patrolled. So we'll send out a patrolman, walk down the entire line prior to closing in on something. We recognize that has an impact on our reliability. We rely on meters spinning to make money, and so going into this non-reclose strategy is really a way to mitigate the risk. If a tree is laying in the lines, we're not going to re-energize on it. We're going to patrol it first. Of course, public outreach. We have some slides later, we'll touch on that. And then our red flag warning protocols. So anytime there's a red flag condition, high winds, low relative humidity, potential for extreme fire growth, we will cancel planned work. We will also treat the system as if it's in non-reclose and patrol any fault prior to re-energizing. Lastly is public safety power shutoff, PSPS, and the topic of discussion today. And I save that for the last, and it's built in here as the last topic, the last bullet point, because it really is the tool of last resort when all of our other mitigations are not adequate enough to address the growing risk in a changing climate disruption, whatever we want to call it. Things have changed, and we're seeing more mega fires across really the United States, and this is a tool aimed at addressing that risk in those most extreme scenarios. So as I jump to the next slide here, here's one of the new technology advancements we've made. What you're seeing is a snapshot from one of our cameras. This is on Mount Eldon. You can see the Sky Dome, and this was an initial wildfire start along I-40. We have an artificial intelligence camera on Mount Eldon that picked up on this and alerted dispatch centers across the state. They receive notification, fire staff, county EM, city EM, I think we've onboarded you guys. So they're receiving notifications real time of these incidents as they're starting. This is a way for us to bolster that relationship with our partners and hopefully, aid them in being more successful in achieving their fire suppression goals. This also gives us situational awareness to weather conditions that are impacting our system and that may trigger a PSPS event. Currently 16 installed across primarily the Flagstaff area, down I-17, across I-40, and really covering all of Flagstaff. Really good success stories here, specifically with Coconino National Forest. That's where we've had some incidents since these have been installed. But we are targeting 10 additional sites to be installed by May 1st, prior to this fire season. In addition to that, we've installed pan-tilt zoom cameras. Those are on our system, on our poles, to see what the conditions are affecting our wire in the air. Currently 31, I believe we have another 50 on order. You could see them on the map there. I believe those are the green dots, and then the red dots are the weather stations across the state. So making those data-driven decisions to really know the weather conditions that are affecting our system rather than relying on simply a forecast or publicly available data that may not be relevant to where our lines are in time and space. I'm going to advance to the PSPS page, and this really is just a placeholder for me to talk through PSPS. So how we got here, we have over 1,700 distribution feeders across our system that serve 1.4 million customers. Of those, across our system, APS has identified 250 that we classify as high risk. This spans from Flagstaff, Payson, Prescott, Douglas, and kind of the Mogollon Rim, if you will. And those 250 are what we make investments for. That's what we adjust our settings for the non-reclose strategy. If I zoom in further, last year it was mentioned that we had 13 of those distribution feeders on PSPS. This year that number has increased to a total of 65 feeders. I think eventually you could see all of those 250 potentially being a part of PSPS. What that means is that we've got a plan in place that if needed, that's a tool in the toolbox we could pull out and throttle the risk and address the risk when the risk is there and where the risk is. It doesn't mean we're gonna call a PSPS for any of those 250 on any given year. This year, the move to 65 was a matter of capacity, building capacity not only within our organization, but with our partners and stakeholder groups, much like you all, and making sure that we're aiding each other in the process as we ramp up this program for the future. And really making sure that we're stepping it up incrementally to address the most risky of the areas, and that we have good data to support those decisions. Again, this program was stood up last year with 13 feeders. We did monitor 3 events last year that were approaching threshold for PSPS. There was one in May, one in September, one in October. As far as the thresholds, they were not there for one of the 3. The 3 thresholds revolve around weather, fuels, and then a composite indice kind of taking into account multiple factors. So 2 of the 3 were there. I think the mitigating factor in all 3 events was the fuels conditions were too moist. This Thursday, the winds are gonna be there. I'm sure you guys got the forecast. It's gonna be extremely windy. However, fuels are a mitigating factor in this situation where we're not forecasting any chance of a PSPS. So we have these checks and balances built into the process to ensure that if one indice is trending upwards, that if other ones are at a low enough level that we are able to make a risk-based decision, and that our other mitigation factors, whether it's non-reclose strategy, red flag warning protocols, those are mitigating the risk. Again, this would be a tool of last resort and for the most extreme conditions. What you see here on the slide is really the life cycle that we've built out for consideration of notification to our customers, standing up our own internal incident command, and really this is based on the forecast period. Again, our meteorologists forecast 24/7, and they're tracking events and weather conditions nonstop. We would feel comfortable internally kind of raising the flag at 5 days out. At 4 days out, that's when we're going to stand up incident command, notification to our partners, our stakeholder groups, and continue that through the duration of the event. Frequent and consistent notification is our priority to our stakeholders and our customers through this process. We recognize it's an inconvenience. It may have a significant impact on those that are affected, and so we want to make sure folks have plenty of notice prior to an event being called. On average, and this was, I think, covered last year, we would expect, as looking back at previous weather events, anywhere from 0 to 3 events in a year. This is looking at historical weather conditions over the last 30 years and kind of seeing what would meet thresholds on an annual basis. Again, that's across the state, and so that could be considering Prescott, Flagstaff, Payson, Globe, 0 to 3 events in a year. When we look at an event itself, the duration of the outage, we want to make sure that we're keeping in mind the impact to customers and cooperators and stakeholders, so we would proactively turn off power prior to winds meeting a certain threshold or other conditions meeting the threshold. And we would do it in daylight hours so that folks had appropriate time and space to make whatever preparations they need. The duration of the night, and then in the morning, patrol times and any re-energization, we factor in about 20 hours for the duration of an outage. That doesn't take into account if something's broken. If we have 20 poles down and we have to set new poles, that would be an additional time frame that would be required. The beauty of this, if I can find any, would be that it is a planned event. It's pretty rare that you're able to plan something like this, like a major outage for us as a utility. But that's kind of the beauty in it, is that we have time to write our switching plans, to write our patrol plans. Joe's team knows exactly how many patrolmen he needs and where they need to be and how many helicopters he needs and drones and switchmen and how to stage that resource so that we can be effective when the event is done to start picking up customers. And which customers are the priority to pick up? What are those key accounts, medically monitored customers? We know where all that is beforehand, and it's built into the protocols that they've established. So if there's any kind of, beauty in this, I think that's what it would be, is that is a planned event, forecastable, and that we've built plans ahead of time to stand up incident command. A major piece of that is customer communications, cooperator engagement, stakeholder engagement through the process, and even pre-season and following season. So Janet's on the line. Janet, I don't know if you want to cover these or if you would like me to stumble through. I'm not as up to speed on the customer comm side.
Sure, I can take it for you, Brian. Just want to check everybody's hearing me okay?
We got you.
Okay, Brian, I'll ask you to forward the slides though, so don't go anywhere. Okay. So as Brian mentioned, a key component for us is outreach to our customers and our stakeholders. We've got a comprehensive plan that we're going to do to reach out to customers, but we're also going to be relying on PIOs in emergency management with the city. We'll work closely with Sarah and others. But the way our plan looks is we're really going to start early, and our messaging is really going to be about personal preparedness. We're going to want our customers making sure that they are up to date with their contact information within our system so that we can reach them when we need to. We also want to make sure that they are signed up for the alerts in the counties they live in. So we'll be pushing them to the Coconino County alert system to make sure that as Coconino County Emergency Management helps us spread the word when we are planning for a PSPS event or see one on the horizon, that their outreach is effective also. So if you could go to the next slide. So we're going to start broadly. Brian talked about the 250 feeders. We're going to be talking to everybody every customer on one of those feeders in general about the wildfire mitigation and preparation that we do and how we're working to keep their communities safe. But then there'll be more targeted messaging to customers who are going to be impacted if we have to call a PSPS on the line that serves them. And so that information is actually going to be going out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The information to all customers on a wildfire mitigation feeder, that's already started. And again, our messaging is preparedness. This is a sample of what our customers will be receiving. Brian, if you can go to the next. And this is kind of our overview, as I mentioned, wildfire preparedness, PSPS impacted customer campaign, general wildfire preparedness education campaign, however we can get that word out. Mailings, emails. We'll be working, as I said, with county emergency management. We'll work with Sarah and collaborate on any wildfire messaging that the city might be doing. I and others on our team will be at any community event we possibly can be, just to spread the word about what we're doing and the impact of PSPS. And all of this has already started. Next slide. And this is just a picture of the mailer that will go to everyone who is on a PSPS impacted line. Just shows it's very comprehensive. It pushes them to be prepared. It pushes them to sign up for their alerts. And we also are working with what we call our medically sensitive customers. And this is an area where we're doing a big push to make sure that anyone who might be using life-saving equipment is registered as such within our system, and hopefully registering the same way within the county system, because we have some programs where we'll be doing specific outreach to those customers in a PSPS situation, but throughout the year, if there's a planned outage that's going to impact them, we're going to make sure we reach out to them. Next slide. And this is just a slide on how can you help keep customers updated and ready. Well, it's all PIOs working together, and we are integrated into every PIO group we can find, working with our emergency management and municipal PIOs. And basically that's the big message there. And we also share all this information on how customers can be prepared and ready on our website. And I think that's it, Brian.
Okay, and I believe I'm passing it to City EM. I do just want to give them a huge shout out. Working with them has been fantastic, and they've given us some of their areas of concern that we've been able to work through, moving isolation points, installing new equipment, switches, new devices that we can keep their stuff on that they need and address their concerns while mitigating the risk, again, where that risk really is. So huge shout out to those folks and the work that they've helped us with.
And before Daniel takes over, I just want to add, that's what Brian just mentioned, the work we're doing with the city EM department. It's really all about us trying to be as targeted and surgical, if you'd like, is another description, but as targeted as we can be. We're protecting the areas we need to protect and wanting to impact the lowest number of customers possible. And that is a complex process. As Brian mentioned, new equipment, kind of tracing our lines and making sure that we're only taking the lines out of service that we need to for safety purposes. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Janet. Mayor, Vice Mayor. So as Janet has talked about, we're going to launch a preparedness campaign. We're going to be active. We're going to be educating the citizens, the residents of some tasks they can do to improve their own resiliency, because resiliency is the key. We have assembled a PSPS task force that is comprised of the group here today. We evaluated, developed mitigation and response strategies, and that's what we're going to present to you from here on out during this presentation. So if a PSPS event does take place, we will get notified City EM about 5 days' notice. We will then make notice to the task force, senior officials, and the elected. So everybody will be in the know well in advance, and we will walk you through the city's plans as we go on. Communication will be made daily with APS, county, EOC, and also through the state, to the state through the county. And if it is a long and a sustained outage, which we hope that does not take place, we are prepared to talk with the NGOs. We've already made contact with Red Cross. They have some certain criteria that they won't be able to stand up a shelter until it meets some criteria of a sustained outage. And then also you can expect daily updates from us on how we're doing, our progress and our challenges, and what it should look like the next day. Hand over to Water Services.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Lee Williams, Water Services. I am here to talk about Water Services' response to the PSPS events and how we will handle it. So if you look at these pie charts, the one on the left, current potable water sources, we have 4 main sources. Unfortunately, 76% of our sources are in the de-energized areas. It's a lot of black on that pie graph, but we're in a, how am I going to say this? It's doable. It's going to be difficult, but it's doable. We will continue to maintain water supplies to the city. The way we will do that is our local wells, as you can see on that right pie chart, will provide 24% of our sources. And something that we have in our corner that's working for us is that we have the ability to produce approximately double the amount of water during our peak day that we need on our peak day. So we have the ability to produce about 20 or 21 million gallons per day when all of our sources are running full steam. And the city of Flagstaff uses about 11 million gallons per day. That's really helping us out here. So even though 76% of our sources will be de-energized, we're able to help mitigate. One, we have a lot of redundancy in our system. And two is we will be able to deploy some generators to some of our sources to power those remotely. After this was announced last year, Brian Hunsinger, manager of the water plant, had the idea to be able to run half of the Woody Mountain well field on generators. So we were in the middle of that project. We are still waiting on a transformer, just long lead times. It should be here in the next few weeks, just in time for this fire season to show up, or the dry part of the year to show up. So when APS announces that they will have a PSPS event 5 days out, we will deploy generators to our critical sources. We have the ability to take one out to the raw water pump station that will pump water to the Lake Mary water treatment plant, which will not be de-energized. That will allow us to produce, depending on how we modulate the flows, anywhere from 5 to about 7 or 7.5 million gallons per day of those 11 million gallons that are needed. Once this Woody Mountain project is complete, the wells take there's a much higher demand for electricity than the surface pumps to pump water from the lake. So we'll have 3 generators out at the Woody Mountain well field. And I'm just going to start throwing some numbers at you. Please let me know if you'd like me to stop and explain. But when those generators are under load, they are going to consume approximately 600 gallons of fuel every 24 hours. So 3 of them at the Woody Mountain well field, that's 1,800 gallons per day. And 1 of them at the Lake Mary raw water pump station, that's another 600. So that puts water production at about 2,400 gallons of diesel fuel consumption every 24 hours. That being said, once the generators are deployed, we will have staff out there. Once they're running, once this PSPS event goes into effect, we'll have somebody out there to watch them to make sure there's not vandalism occurring. Public Works has graciously volunteered to help us out with some fuel hauling. They have some tanks on the back of trucks that they can take fuel out to these generators for us. The water production crew has a 1,000-gallon diesel truck that they can take fuel to these different sites. Where am I here? Plant operations. Oh, so we'll run the water plant at 24 hours. That's how we're going to get the 7 million gallons per day out of the water plant. And as I said before, we'll have CDL drivers haul fuel and shuttle generators. I think Chief Gaylord is going to touch on this a little bit. Before this occurs, we have the ability to fill up our reservoirs. We usually run them at about 90 to 95% just so we don't overflow something in wastewater. But when one of these events is announced, we will make sure that those reservoirs are topped off, and that will give us approximately 1.8 days of storage in our system. That 1.8 days does not mean that we're going to go dry in 1.8 days. As I said, we'll be able to run our local wells, we'll be able to run some of our sources with generators, and depending on the time of year, we may have the inner basin online, which can bring some additional water in and help take some of the pressure off of us. That's usually online like June through September. So that being said, I said this is going to be difficult. There's not going to be a lot of redundancy in our system. We're used to having almost 100% redundancy in our system for operations. If something breaks down, we take it out of service, we put something else on. When one of these PSPS events occurs, that redundancy is going to be severely limited, and we're going to be highly dependent on our diesel generators, which are the backup plan. I forget who, one of the Kellys, Brian or Daniel, mentioned earlier that last year water production was affected, and there were 13 lines that they're going to de-energize. This year there's over 60. That is going to add Wildcat Hill, our wastewater treatment facility, to the public service. I don't know if we're calling it a de-energization or not, but with a blackout event. That one takes a lot of fuel also. If you look at the screen there, that's 4,300 gallons per day to keep that plant online. Doing the math, 2,400 gallons for water production and 4,300 gallons for wastewater treatment. That's 6,700 gallons of diesel fuel every 24 hours. That's not a small number. If you're driving on the freeway and you're next to one of those tanker trucks, the single trucks hold 3,000 gallons, the tandems are 6,000. So we will be burning through a tandem truck and then some every 24 hours. Carter Reinhardt Oil on Butler has been contacted. They are very willing to help us out. They said with 5 days' notice, they can easily get a tandem truck up here. We can ask for a single also, kind of depending on our situation. As I said before, Public Works is willing to help out. There's a bit of a pinch point that we're still trying to work through right now, and that is that those trucks that drive on the freeways and haul the 3,000 gallons of fuel, they dispense the fuel too quickly from any of our tanks. They need to go into a tank that's 1,000 gallons or more, or as the representative from Carter said, the people standing around might get a shower in diesel fuel. So we are working through that one pinch point right now. As I said, Public Works is willing to help out. We may bring those trucks up, use the tanks at Public Works as kind of a middleman, put the fuel in the tanks, and then put it into the smaller tanks that we own from there. And I'll keep working with Carter Fuel on that as this approaches. And just one last word of note here is that the Rio de Flag treatment plant will not be affected. But unfortunately, that plant doesn't have the ability to handle solids, so Wildcat Hill is really the end of the line, very important plant. All right, and that's it for water services.
I have a quick question, or what I think is a quick question, and maybe you're going to cover it. It was about making sure that we have the water available for firefighting, and I'm sure you've modeled this out.
Yeah, so I touch on it just a little bit, but the 1.8 days of storage in our system does not count if we're using 1 million gallons a day or 1.5 to fight a fire. So there is that storage, and as I said, we will be able to put water into the system as people are using it. But as far as fighting a fire, I'm going to let Chief Gaylord speak to the quantity of water for that, because it's an unknown to me.
Thank you. Mayor and Council, the question on fire protection comes to mind when we talk about a public safety power shutoff impacting our critical infrastructure. There is good news. System design is such that Interim Director Williams talking about we've got capacity. We can take a system shutdown of a certain magnitude, and he's got plans to continue to provide for water production that'll go into our system. Good news there. Gravity feed system, which is generating pressure in the system as well. So, for that first, as long as storage can be maintained, we don't anticipate difficulties in developing fire flows for structural firefighting. The concern might be how prolonged it is. It also, if the public safety power shutoff is precautionary. There's no fire activity in our area. It stands to reason that our supplies will last longer and be more manageable to replenish and keep the system up and running. If there is fire in our region and we start to consume, we're going to go right into that 1.8 or 1.8 days. Certainly things to mitigate, working closely with the team on monitoring that, and we're going to learn a lot. Any questions for me?
All right, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Sarah Langley, Public Affairs Director. I'll be very brief today. So in the event of a PSPS, Public Affairs will mostly be working with APS to amplify their message. We recognize that it's their event, so we want to make sure that the message stays consistent and accurate. So we'll be working with Janet to make sure that all of our residents and those living in the surrounding areas are as aware as possible. We will also be ready to message to our community if we anticipate any impact to city services. So this is unlikely, but it could be in the event of a longer-term PSPS, longer than the 20 hours that was mentioned, or if there are any unforeseen issues that occur. So for example, if there was any impact to water supply, we would be working closely with our water services team and their communications folks to make sure our community is up to date and informed. So that's all I have. I will turn it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Council, any questions, comments? Councilmember Spence?
I have two questions with regard to the 4 generators that would be deployed. Are those generators currently in possession of the city, or are you having to rent them?
Thank you, Councilmember Spence. We are in possession of 5 generators, and they are at the water plants, so they'll be able to haul those out there very quickly.
Thank you. The second question is, I haven't heard, to this point, I haven't heard any plans to ask the residents to curtail or sharply curtail their water usage. Is that part of the plan?
That was discussed early on, and I don't know where that is. Yes, okay.
Councilmember Spence, yes, that is part of the plan. That Erin Young is over that, and she will roll out the curtailment procedures. I think stage 1, stage 2. So, yeah. That's your.
Thank you. I'm pleased to hear that that's part of the plan.
Yeah.
Councilmember Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really appreciate the investment into becoming more self-sufficient from our energy provider, and kudos to all the public and private and governmental partnerships that you guys have coming out. I think that becoming more self-sufficient is helping out your partners as well, so that's a benefit. We appreciate that very much. I was wondering if you wanted to explain a little bit more about the hot spots in your equipment and how that affects the danger.
Yeah, I appreciate the question and the comments. So hotspots typically occur in transformers or substations where the cooling fins on the equipment are not sufficient for the age of the equipment. So being able to see that with a drone with infrared capability has really helped us in evaluating our predictive maintenance cycles and being able to replace that equipment before end of life until failure. So looking at it from a different lens to see what equipment is really getting hot out there and going to become an issue, and then looking across the system to where are those other devices that have a history of failure so we can preventatively replace that with newer stuff, essentially.
And Brian, just to add to that too, and he's spot on, but great question. Thank you for that. We have a program that's actually been in place now for almost 9 years. An entire team that runs around in this Suburban, kind of looks like the old Ghostbuster car. That's what it reminds me of, all the stuff on it. But it has the different lenses, and as it drives, it can actually capture the data at about 50 miles an hour. And those reports are sent to every district every month, or excuse me, quarterly, to go out and fix. So if we find something that is past a threshold as we've set and therefore a hot spot, we go and fix it. It's something that is done proactively before the equipment fails or before that hot spot becomes a danger of emitting a spark or a fire cause.
Excellent, thank you for that. And you might want to stay up there for just a moment, because I wasn't here during the last presentation. But, so the questions in my mind are I'm assuming hot spots are things that could cause the fire. What are some other things that we're trying to prevent from happening?
Absolutely. So thank you for the question. I think that's a great one. So as mentioned before, forestry, vegetation contact under most utilities plans are a significant cause for outages or strikes, contact with the equipment. So energized equipment gets hit by a tree, there's the ability for it to spark or cause a fire, create a hot spot, if you will, under the conductor and the vegetation. A couple things we have in place there, as we talked about, just to hit on it again, is our non-reclose strategy, which we will not re-energize during fire season until it's been patrolled and we can visually see that it's safe to do so, even outside of a PSPS event. It does add to the time an outage lasts, but it's safer, and it's quite honestly the right thing to do. We don't want to close into a tree or a piece of vegetation and start a fire. Second is our programs just in place, from our vegetation management to our DSAP, clearing around the tree or around the poles, and just being certain that the type of equipment that we're installing is sufficient for the area. So if you head out towards Pine Springs off of Devil Dog Road, you're going to see a piece of line that is pretty unique for the area. It's covered conductor, aerial covered conductor, which is a new idea and in our system, not a new idea in general, that we're putting in areas where tree strikes were prevalent. And prevalent for us is less than 2%, so mind you, not very many. And constantly looking at the new technologies and the different things that we can do to prevent rather than react.
That's fantastic, and thank you for extending me the grace, Mayor. I have only 2 more questions to go. But one of them is, so I try to wrap my head around how are we going to get this out to the public. I've been here long enough to know that you can send out all the information that you want, and it still might not be received as well. So it may be partly a suggestion, but mostly a question. There's nothing like actually having the thing happen to get people's attention, and then everybody's talking about it, right? Yeah. So is there going to be a test? Are we going to black out for a minute just to get people talking about this and say, oh, this was just a test for PSPS. If you don't know what this is what it is, and this could happen in real terms?
So not currently. We do not have that as part of the plan. I honestly can absolutely see the logic there, right, of getting everybody's attention for sure. But what we have done is the partnerships, as you've mentioned before, and thank you for acknowledging that. The partnerships have been absolutely fantastic and vital. We couldn't have gotten to this point without the City of Flagstaff and the different departments and resources that have helped us. But quite honestly, it is a boots on the ground, hard-fought campaign, to be quite honest with you. Janet and I travel the Northeast regularly. I joke all the time and tell her I see her more than I see my family, and it's the truth, and vice versa for her. And we go and we talk not just to city councils, but to community members, community leaders, different events that are scheduled that we fit in. And we're also welcome, or we welcome any opportunity that you guys may know, or anybody that this messaging would make sense for somebody to come have the conversation. One thing that I can tell you we found definitely in the Flagstaff area, which has been fantastic, is it's accepted, it's understood. The folks that live in the mountains, folks that live in the woods their whole lives, I'm a resident myself, we understand the dangers and the impact of wildfire. Nobody has to tell us that. It doesn't take the power company to explain wildfires can get bad. So that has been very refreshing, and quite honestly, we've learned a significant amount from the public and have implemented it as part of the plan.
Excellent. So as I try to see where other people can help out, what you're saying is we can also help out as council members by connecting to our community. Three places that come to top of mind are some of our neighborhood associations. We have La Paz Vieja, Sunnyside, and Southside Neighborhood Association that and Mobile Haven Neighborhood Association that I'm familiar with. And those, you know, in my interactions with them, they really get the word out to the people. So if there's any kind of way that you can present it, those 4 locations, I would see that as a benefit to our community for sure. Last comment. I know that our sustainability department, and I'm looking at the manager's team, is kind of working with every department in the city to get messages out and to get the community more connected. Do we see in-house as the sustainability to be kind of our boots on the ground to connect this message to the public?
Thank you, Councilmember.
Yeah, let me give this to Jan first, and then I can answer your second question.
Thanks, Stacy. Councilman Garcia, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more on your previous question related to how are we going to let people know. I think one of the key partnerships we have is with Coconino County Emergency Management. And at the time APS starts doing our direct customer outreach, they are going to use their emergency alert system, and they'll use it in two ways. They'll be alerting through the folks that have subscribed, so the residents of the area, they'll be using it to alert them, but they'll also be using their geographic targeted iPod system where they can connect with every cell phone that is in a geographic region. So they'll be using that also. So it'll be like the Amber Alerts, which we all get, or all the emergency warnings. That information will also be going out at that point. So people, we hope that helps people understand. We'll also be using local media to a great degree. So hopefully that's helpful too.
Excellent information for the public. Thank you.
And then I'd like to add, obviously our PSPS task force here and having Sarah Langley on the team and others will be working internally to make sure we get messages out. But we have the Resilience Hub. In fact, the county and myself presented last night. They're presenting again tonight on emergency preparedness. Ready, Set, Go. So we spent a lot of time talking to them about getting set up for RAVE, to receive those alerts and getting their preparedness packets. They left with a preparedness, emergency preparedness packet. So we've been spending time on that through the resilience hubs. So last night was in the Market of Dreams and tonight's at Murdoch Center.
And one last thing, Councilmember, I forgot to mention, thank you for your invitation. I'd love to connect with you as well. I would absolutely I'd love to attend that with you or without you, whatever you prefer, and look for the dates and the times for those community events. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. One of my comments was going to be the Resilience Hub, so you beat me to it, as per usual. A couple of thoughts. This was a great presentation, and the amount of information, well thought out, it's very well thought out in the collaboration. I am just very impressed as how all of you got together and are working on this. I have had the vegetation management program, the hazard tree removal out at my house a few times, and I'm just very impressed at APS and how they're proactive in that, and very everyone's very kind and they let you know, and it's just a great program. So I think that's something to commend. And then Janet Dean's communication. I know I worry too about how would we get all of this out, but you know, Janet has done a great job, and I know her team will continue to do a great job on getting communications out to us. And you know, no one wants to talk about the outages, but I'm glad that we're being proactive and doing it, so thank you.
All right, I don't see any other questions or comments. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. What? Oh. All right, we're moving on to item number 9.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Discussion regarding possible sale of city property.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Bryce Doty, your real estate manager. Today, I want to tell you a little story about a small parcel which has had an outsized impact on staff resources for the past couple of decades. And at the end of this story, I've got some options for you to consider. I also have a staff recommendation on some of those options. But before we get there, let's begin. So to give you some context here, we bought a lot in 1991 for some Butler improvement projects. Lot didn't end up being part of those improvements, or not all of that lot. So what we have is some excess land. What you're looking for, the north-south right there is San Francisco. And then there's the alley to the east. And then we've got a little 7,100 square foot lot there. Part of the reason I'm here is that every couple months, Reggie Eccleston, the code enforcement, comes and says, Bryce, we've got some more people out there, and I'm spending all my time hanging out on this lot, and I'm kind of tired of it. If it's not Reggie, it's adjacent neighbors who are saying, we've got a whole lot of trash out there. Looks like somebody is building a mobile car repair shop out there. We've actually had people file deeds claiming that they owned it, and it was a very fascinating deed. It was like, from this nonprofit to this nonprofit to the, and so we have to go do a quiet title action at the court for that. So we've got this funny little lot that we don't have a great use for. We do have upcoming Butler improvement projects happening. We do not need this for a laydown yard or anything like that. We've already cleared that with capital improvements. But we've got a bit of a problem lot, and we want to just let you know that we have tried for now coming up on decades to try to do something with this lot, and we haven't found the right solution or the right timing on those. And so here's what we are. We're looking at this north off of Butler here. There's this sign that says parking here. I think that actually is not really to intend that this is overflow parking for this, but that's actually to direct people to San Francisco to turn up to the historic downtown for parking. But that's just kind of how it's been used. It finds ways to have lots of debris on there. Lots of random stuff. We've got some characters that live in the neighborhood that like to kind of run electric wires to there to people who are kind of living in cars and situations like that. So we just are probably not being the best neighbors to the surrounding neighborhood by virtue of owning this property. One of the key, so that's what's happening on it now and what's been happening on it. So now I just want to talk to a little bit about some of our efforts to develop this to date. One of the key problems, or the main impediment to getting anything done on this lot, is that the base flood elevation, or the regulatory flood elevation, is 9 feet from where the existing grade is. So if you want to build anything up there, you're going to have to build any of the living quarters 9 feet above that. And that's a significant hurdle. Essentially, you could do some kind of garage that has some wash-through zone out there, but we're talking some significant expenses compared to other parcels in town. We do have this wonderful project called the Rio de Flag Flood Control Project, which is going to alleviate these issues. But we got to build that project, and then FEMA also has to revise their maps. And I can't in good conscience tell you when both of those things are going to happen within a reasonable time frame. Maybe 7 years, I don't know. I'm just pulling out a number out of my head. So that's the main impediment to get this done. That doesn't mean that we haven't tried to get things happening on this. Habitat came and kind of gave us some ideas for, hey, let's do this garage thing. That's great, but you still need to do all of those significant improvements, and you got to build out of that floodway zone. And you're getting three units at max here. And is this a good opportunity cost, considering other opportunities that Habitat has in the city? The property owner who owns the green cottages just adjacent to the east of that, he came to the city and said, hey, you know what, I've got this house on there. I can probably keep that house, and let's do a land swap. He said, great, this is something that might actually happen. So what we did, we pursued kind of swapping our lot for the lot with the house on it. Maybe we could incorporate the house into part of the kind of pocket park next to the Murdoch Center. Seemed like something that was really worth bringing to you. However, the cottages, those have a waiver from the high occupancy housing zoning. And we can't really give a waiver, and that was what the property owner wanted on our parcel. And we can't really give a waiver of a regulation that we passed. The appropriate remedy would probably be to amend the regulation. And so that's kind of where those effort died. We thought, well, let's clean this thing up and let's give it to Park Flag to manage because people are already parking on it. Maybe we'll, spruce it up and have them manage it. There's a couple impediments to that. One, you can't just stripe a dirt lot according to code, so we're gonna have to pave this thing. And that's gonna trigger offsite improvements where you're gonna have to improve the alleyway also. So right now, if we wanted Park Flag to manage it, we would be looking at some significant costs that is probably a low return on investment if you're just gonna keep it as a parking lot. Not to mention that in its current zoning, it can't really be a standalone parking lot. So struck out there again. So if, as some of these options are proposed, we consider selling this, what do we think we might get for this, or what does that look like? And some of these numbers are really just in reference to the expenses of using it as Park Flag. That's where those came from. But I'm thinking because of the floodway issues, we're looking at probably $20 a square foot. That might be a little conservative. If we were going to go through a sale, I would go ahead and get an appraisal, and we would have the minimum bid at appraised value. Right now, it does not generate any taxes. If it was just a downtown parking lot, it would at least bring in $1,200 of taxes a year for that. If it was improved with some kind of housing, with similar to the area, which this one might be a little bit more optimistic because I was pulling one that I don't know if code you could actually build that on, but you could have some significant tax revenue by selling this and putting it into the private market and having somebody build something on it. And so those break-in even years, that was just comparing it to if we turn it into a parking lot managed by Park Flag. And then the other option, or the other thing that we've considered, is kind of the tragedy of commons, why we can't have nice things. If we're not being good neighbors, maybe we put a bunch of boulders on there. This is my best MS Paint. People did offer to fix it for me, but I thought it looked kind of cute. So anyways, yeah. Understood. But yeah, so, do we just try to prevent access while we try to figure out what's happening and what to do on this? One more consideration I wanted to bring up was our commitments to affordable housing. And, we do have some resolutions that we passed for any lots or any parcels of land that we've deemed that we do not need. We need to put it through a lens of, can we provide affordable housing to the city with this lot? It's to me, it's a balance. Do we dedicate resources here, or do we use any proceeds from a sale of this to more higher value parcels? And I think at max, zoning is going to be difficult to get anything more than 3 parcels on this, or three kind of units on it. The best housing bang for the buck would probably be to combine it with the adjacent property owner for some kind of combined property. But there might be some code, there are some upcoming code consideration amendments to HOH, which might make that a possibility that landowner would then consider bidding on, in anticipation of those, making it easier for him to develop the kind of project that he wants to develop. That's what he mentioned to me last week about it. We do have interest from the adjacent lot of the adjacent owner on the other side of the alley, the Kawa Bar. He's interested in purchasing it, and at least in the interim, it would likely be a privately managed lot. But at least he could understand the kind of characters that we've been living with, and maybe it could be his problem instead of our problem, if that's the direction we wanted to go. But staff has spent an enormous amount of time on this tiny parcel. And I think the payoff is diminishing the more staff resources we use on it. And I think if council, so to get to our options, here's kind of our workflow here. And the first option is we can always do nothing. We can wait until this becomes a more attractive parcel because of the floodway issues. And if we want to do that, we will put this on a shelf and try to manage it in the interim as best as we can. We can try to sell or develop the property now, and we can sell it at public auction to the highest bidder, or we could condition the sale on some type of affordability metric or some type of short-term rental prohibition, something like that. We could try to partner with an affordable housing partner. I know we do have interest from Habitat on doing those things, but is that, one of the considerations is how do we get this parcel developed as fast as possible? And this is probably always going to be one of those more challenging parcels relative to other parcels. Or the other idea is find a way to go through a long slog of rezoning it so that we can operate it as a park flag parking lot. So happy to discuss these in greater detail. Staff's recommendation, we're ready to move on from this. We would love if any of the proceeds of any sale were to go towards the affordable housing efforts, that we could direct our staff resources and time to achieve more bang for our buck. So that's all I have. Open for any discussion or clarification. I also have housing online. Justina's on Teams if we have any questions for housing.
Great, thank you. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Bryce, for the presentation. And I did put in the comments that we're going to have to introduce you to Canva for those graphics. But in all seriousness, I know that this has been a burdensome property for you all, and I completely understand the desire to be able to move on from it. That said, I would really like to see us find ways to make this seems like a perfect spot for some potential infill affordable housing. And so I'd like to know what, if you can go into a little bit more depth on what work has already been done in that consideration. I know in the background materials that were provided on this, there was reference to Habitat and some other work that's been done on the housing front. But if you can just go into a little bit more of what that has entailed and how we could possibly preserve this to be kind of a combination of some of the options that you've provided. For example, if we can prevent access to the lot in the interim until the Rio project is at least completed in that area, to be able to then mitigate some of the flooding concerns if we were to move forward with affordable.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilmember House. As recently as last fall, we were talking with Habitat about this lot again. And this was kind of during the ramp up for the Timber Sky community ones. And so we felt like because of the challenges of the floodway on this one, it was probably best to keep focused on the Timber Sky communities as the more viable project for right now. And ultimately the answer was, it's going to become a more viable parcel post Rio de Flag, and that's just going to take time. And so I think that would be the right answer for affordable housing development in the near to long term. I guess the medium term would be really waiting until the floodway is revised so that you don't have to build out to such an enormous height.
Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Bryce, for the presentation. It's an interesting story you did tell, for sure. My question is, if we repurpose, can the proceeds of the repurposing of this property or the selling of this property go back to affordable housing?
I'm going to see if Sterling could answer that one. I don't see why not, because we passed our resolution that said, hey, we're going to use this for affordable housing. I don't see why the proceeds couldn't, but we might be getting into technicalities that I can't address.
Yeah, it's actually something that I'd like to look into just to make sure, but I understand exactly why you're asking the question, so, thanks.
Thank you, because that would kind of make a difference for how I'd want to vote on this for sure. And what was I thinking off the top of my head? Do we have a number from how much staff effort? Like, is there a quantifiable number, like $10,000 a year, and then we could look at how many years we'd have to do that for, and to see if we would really be losing a bunch of money by holding on to this and sending people out there from code compliance and the cops and whatever?
I don't have a good number. I do know that talks with Habitat, initially started in 2011, I believe, or 2010. So we've looked at developing this for the last, 15 years kind of thing. Yeah. But you're spot on. I am curious now just to add up staff time and put a dollar amount as to what that looks like.
Well, I asked that question because I too, with a council member House, would not want to see us sell any of our property because it's so valuable. But if it's just going to really be cost burdensome to the point to where we would never recoup the cost, even if land values went astronomically more than they are now, then it defeats the purpose. So that's why I had those two questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Matthews and then Councilmember Spence.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I am for selling at a public auction. With the Rio de Flag, who knows when we would be able to really build something meaningful. And right now, it sounds like it's been a financial as well as a human drain on the city. And I think we could put conditions on it, that it has, if Sterling says that's okay, I think Bryce, you mentioned it, that it has to be affordable development. And let's see who picks up on it. There's a lot to be said about the public doing a much better job than the city sometimes when it comes to getting stuff done. So I think at this point, let's just get it sold and let's redirect our resources to things that are more important to our city.
If I am so sorry to
Yes,
interrupt, Mayor,
please,
go ahead.
and then City Manager, actually, and then Councilmember Spence.
And council, you could go ahead and give direction today to contingent upon finding out that we can put that back toward affordable housing, just depending on what the research pans out. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to give a little more context to the discussion of timing of the Rio de Flag. Council's aware we've been having discussions about that project commencing, maybe, hopefully, early next year. But the more recent discussions is the scope of the project changing and such that it might be phased. That's a very likely scenario, outcome yet to be determined. I was chatting with Christine Cameron about that just today. So stay tuned on that, but I think in even the most expeditious scenarios, with the first phase of the Rio de Flag involving this part of the Rio de Flag south of the tracks, which is likely, I think we could be, a few years away from that construction being concluded in an optimistic scenario. I think what Bryce touched on is with respect to having the maps redrawn with FEMA and the floodplain is a real question mark, time-wise, and I don't think it's unrealistic to think that could be years. The totality of the project and then the redrawing of the floodplain maps, I think Bryce's reference to 7 years is probably not out of the question. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Spence.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Bryce, for this presentation. I'm coming away from your very complete description of the property and the problems that it has presented. I'm coming away with my thinking is to favor investing in a parking lot that would, for a few years, provide some extra parking places. I realize that it would be a financial loss to the city in terms of recouping the investment in parking, but by investing in a parking facility, that buys us the time to allow for affordable housing to be built, either with a reduction of the flood risk and therefore having a less expensive development come in, or it would give an affordable housing developer time to plan a flood-resistant affordable housing structure, which I realize we're only talking 3 affordable housing units, but 3 is better than none, and that's why I would favor the approach of holding on to the land, paving it as a parking structure, with the idea that as soon as we see a way forward for affordable housing, the asphalt would be dug up and construction of affordable housing units.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Bryce, I'm wondering, I remember talking to Eric with Habitat about this, and he was mentioning building the Habitat homes, but on stilts. Is that something that you considered?
I think that's kind of building it up on stilts with parking in the bottom, but it's going to have to be open air so that the water can go through the garage. I think that was what the idea is.
And can you remind me the last time that you spoke with Eric and Habitat?
I think Dan was talking with Eric and Carl about this last fall. So 6 months ago, I'd say.
And what was that conversation, and do you think anything has changed since then? It's about Timber Sky.
Yeah. I was thinking that, from the flood perspective and the additional inventory and commitments through the Timber Sky, that instead of spinning wheels on this, which is going to be more challenging, more expensive, let's focus on the ones that we're trying to get in the ground.
Okay, thank you.
Joanne, and then Councilmember Garcia.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I was actually hoping, is Justina online? Yeah, you were going to ask. I was hoping Justina could, I know she's been involved in, or knows about those conversations with Habitat, but also just giving a little perspective on this property and what type of housing could be built on this property. I think it would be helpful.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, everyone. Justina Costa, Assistant Housing Director. I'm happy to provide a few words of knowledge here. I actually haven't been involved in this specific parcel. Sarah, who is on convenient vacation, was the one that was mostly involved. But I can tell you from a housing perspective, housing does support Bryce's recommendation to go ahead and sell this parcel, whether that profit comes to the housing section or to other needs identified within the city, just because it is a parcel that is small. The flood component is massive, and unless like Bryce was saying, council's interested in retaining that parcel until after the flood mitigation efforts are completed. So that's housing's view on this. In terms of conversations with Habitat, I believe that those were all with Dan specifically, and so I can't speak to those. I'm sorry, Joanne.
Thank you.
But I'm happy to answer any other specific questions.
Thank you, Justina. Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. That was my main question, was what does housing think? You took care of that one. Nice job, just in time. Got it by the buzzer. But since I got the floor, you talked about the like utility and infrastructure improvements. Are they abnormally hard to achieve here, or is it just your typical having to do them and having to find a developer that would be willing to go through all that and still provide affordable housing on top of all that?
Yeah, so I think essentially the issue is that because you're touching both of these alleyways, if you're coming in first here, I don't know what I'm doing, you're gonna have to improve it all the way up on the north side and all the way up on the east and west side. And so you kind of got a big dollar. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to, all right, there we go. But yeah, so that's the issue.
All right, we have one public commenter, so I'd like to take public comment at this time. Andrew Schaus? Yes, come on down.
And hi there. I appreciate council taking this up. Been here in Flagstaff since about 2006 for college, and this is home. Just finished building my house in downtown, and I'm the owner of the Kava Bar adjacent to this property. Just to give a little context on the matter, we currently have a gentleman who comes into the bar on a daily basis threatening our staff that we have not been neighborly and that he owns the property. Some of the pictures that were shown in the presentation were a home that he set up in the back of one of our other neighbors' properties that we essentially try to be good neighbors to, help out. I know we just recently paid for a plumber for Ray. But essentially the lot acts as a really good free parking lot for a lot of, I would say, lower income, just employee staff of downtown. And that's the majority use. However, it does get co-opted by homeless people due to the closeness with the mission, maybe some other factors. So it's essentially just become a problem for campers finding our stuff stolen and out back there to make somebody's home. And as far as we're concerned, regardless of whether it could be something we were in control of or somebody else was, watching the city have to re-improve the drainage ditch over and over and over again, which I've watched time and time again. They put in a drainage grate that, if anybody looks, is above grade because it's actually an overflow for the Rio de Flag. It's not drainage into the Rio de Flag. So as you mentioned, anything in my understanding would have to be open air to allow for that water. But yeah, I just wanted to put a little bit of information behind this all kind of coming forward. My fullest intention as a resident here in town and a business owner, as well as I have a job as well working for a corporation, is to make sure that there can be housing for my staff. So restrictions, I think, would be awesome in terms of this being sold for a more quick development, especially in the affordable direction. And were I to be involved, that would be my intention after probably just having it as a parking lot for an amount of time to recoup some expense. So thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. We have a question for you, please, Andrew. Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry about that, Andrew. So I just wanted to clarify, you're saying that your intention would be, if you were ultimately the buyer for this parcel, your intention would be for it to be extended parking temporarily and then hopefully developed into affordable housing?
Yes, absolutely. My standpoint is that our city just needs more affordable housing. I owner built my house that I just finish building because I think the contractors are outrageous. And I was able to finish for under 150 a square foot. So I think that there is a ability and possibility to build not only affordable housing, but also very efficient housing.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
I will add my voice in support of selling this, but based on what we find about the money going to affordable housing. So that's the direction that I'm leaning, but I want to see if that is a possibility. And Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I will agree with that position on this. My main goal is to see what we can do to ensure that this is not a lost opportunity for additional affordable or attainable housing stock. I'm really pleased with what was just shared about the desire to establish this as potential workforce housing down the line. But what I would just hate to see happen would be for this to essentially be a, to quote the song, paved paradise to put up a parking lot. So I understand that it's a bit of a nightmare property right now. I just want to do what we can to ensure that we're not losing a piece of property that could become more of the housing supply that we desperately need for the sake of just perpetual parking, which also, in my mind, may go against some of our own stated objectives for the future direction of the city. So, long story short, I am just in agreement with you on pursuing the sale with the further examination of what can be done to tie or link this with affordable housing, whether at this site or another.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I too am in agreement, and I look forward to Sterling letting us know if this is possible. And for Andrew, I just want to let you know, I used to live for like 2 years in the location that you're at, so I know the house well. Thank you. It was an experience.
Councilmember Garcia.
I too will be supporting the sale of this, and hopefully we can get some word from Sterling as he discovers if we can move this over to housing directly. And if not, I think that we're going to be saving money in the long run by getting rid of what has turned into somewhat of a burden. And hopefully with the sale, we could have some community partners, which are present here tonight, that could potentially purchase this and do something useful with it, and help out the community and the neighborhood in that area. But I do appreciate your sentiment, Councilmember Spence. I too was leaning in that direction, but after doing all the math that I could figure in my head, it just seemed like it was going to cost us way, way, way more than what we could provide for housing. And if we have some independent partners that want to provide that housing, more better for us. So thank you.
All right, so we'll look forward to this coming back with that answer, that question
Mayor,
answered.
I have a question.
I'm sorry, what?
May I have a question?
Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Matthews.
Sorry. I'm in support of what you all have said. I just was curious to have either Sterling or Bryce confirm if we move forward on the sale, can we have a stipulation that it has to be an affordable housing or workforce housing development? Or can we not put that type of restriction?
No, I'll just be very blunt, we can't require that, so. Without going into any further detail, no.
Don't need an E-session, I just, okay.
Don't,
All right.
don't,
I
yeah,
am
don't
still in
need to go up.
forward of,
Thanks.
yeah, I'm still in favor of the sale. We don't need to be spending taxpayer money on something that's going to be years for us to develop when we could potentially sell it to somebody else that would have good intentions to develop it the way we need it in that area. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving down to open call to the public. I do not see any open call to the public. So then moving down to informational items, 2 from mayor, council, and city manager, future agenda item requests. Let's start online with Councilmember Matthews.
Thank you, Mayor. Not too much. As you mentioned at the beginning, Councilmember House and I are in Washington, D.C. We've had a very busy and robust convention of just learning all things about housing and private-public partnerships and workforce housing and just a myriad of other issues that every town and city seems to be experiencing. It was good to hear from others on different solutions and different approaches to the same issues that we face every day. Tomorrow, we wrap up by going to Capitol Hill and speaking to our representatives, and I look forward to that and getting home.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I took the mayor's advice a couple of weeks back and attended Creative Flagstaff's youth art exhibit and talent show at Coconino Center for the Arts a Saturday past. I was astonished by the complexity, intentionality, and sheer talent of our regional's youth. I spoke to many of the artists and encouraged their craft. This exhibit will be running through March, and I highly encourage everyone in the vicinity to attend and support local arts. I also attended the Arizona League of Cities and Towns for their Arizona Budget Basics learning session. It was an online course, and it taught me a lot about what's happening here locally, but also how that relates to budgetary implications across the state. And it was quite luminous for me, so I appreciate that opportunity. Now, looking forward, I'll be heading to the El Mercado in the Sunnyside Market of Dreams this Thursday, where they will be holding their monthly board meeting and to discuss all things Sunnyside. All the members of the community and the public are welcome to attend. This meeting is directly across the street from Kellop Elementary School on the corner of 1st Street and 3rd Avenue in the county building. Come one, come all, and let's help make community decisions for the Sunnyside and have a Sunnyside kind of day. Sunnyside up.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Heidi stole a lot of my thunder with her report, but I will talk a little bit about the Arizona Forwards Environmental Excellence Awards. I did attend, and we may not have won, but I'll tell you what, we have a team that is unbelievable, and I just want to call out Liz Archuleta, Cynthia Nemeth, Jana Weldon, Kristen Crejito, Rose Tohi, and our Economic Vitality team. They all worked very hard on the project, the Multicultural County Park Sculpture Exhibition. And there are new sculptures coming our way, and I encourage everyone to go out and check it out. Thank you.
Councilmember House.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing from me. I'll just ditto what Councilmember Matthews shared. Thank you.
Councilmember Spence.
I have nothing today.
I have just a couple of things. Last week was Read Across America Week, and I read to kindergartners at Thomas Elementary, and it was the best part of my entire week. I also met with students at Associated Students of NAU, which was wonderful to get to know their new elected leaders. And I wanted to share, so I met with Mark Cox, who is the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club, and he's hoping to start a new after-school program at Mount Eldon Middle School. And we started talking about how many youth in our community don't have access to after-school programs. So of Flagstaff's 11,500 K through 12 students, that's charter, private, FUSD, everything, just 13% participate in after-school programming. So roughly 10,000 students don't have access to or participate in after-school activities. So that was really eye-opening. I had no idea that there were that many kids who were, some of them on their own after school. So that is all that I have. City Manager.
Nothing from me, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, we're adjourned.